Steve, you just in the past couple hours actually spoke to the CEOs of both companies, Andrew Liveris and Ed Breen. What did they have to say?
Well, what they had to say, it's a little predictable. What they had to say was that this deal was not driven by activist investors. It wasn't driven by the pressure of the market. It wasn't driven by the slowness of the economy. It was driven by the fact that they think if they put these big firms together and then break them up into separate parts, the firms will be more productive. They have businesses that when they fit together, there'll be higher growth. That's what they said. But it's hard to believe that, right? Because Liveris had approached Coleman before she left.
Ellen Coleman,
the former CEO that was pushed out by an activist investor on the Dupont side, right? He had approached her. She was not interested. And when she got pushed out, right, which was definitely in part because of the activist, that's when this deal was heated up.
But Aaron, I know this, the market received it okay, but it's been roundly panned by, the media and the press and other people too. I mean, Alan Murray, our boss wrote that it's very hard to get excited about this deal or to feel good about this deal unless you're an investment banker. So why all the criticism?
Right, well, if our boss says that, then I agree, right? That's the way to go. And I think he's right. In this case, these are two great, iconic American companies. And they're getting together, and it does feel like it's all about financial engineering. And because there isn't a lot of organic growth, and they're just going to try to do it through synergies, which is a synonym for cost cutting, and they're going to cut a lot of jobs, and maybe they will generate a couple more earnings per share out of this. But is that ultimately long-term good for the American economy? Because you have more people out of work, and ultimately, and I know that Stephen asked about this, I think less R&D spending out of these two giants, which have made huge advances for science.
And that's a big part of it. I mean, DuPont's research lab is famous. Think of all the things it's given us, the brand names, Kevlar, Lycra, Teflon. You have written, Steve, that this might be the beginning of a new normal and a reduction in that across the board. Is that right?
Companies have been taking down their scientific spending, not necessarily the R&D spending, but the amount of spending they do on basic research that gets new patents. Companies have been doing less of that. And when I asked about what's going to happen of DuPont's storied X Center, it's called, where they invented Kevlar and all the other things, and they said it was a cagey answer. It wasn't really. They said that's not where our R&D is anymore. Our R&D is in the businesses, not in that storied central lab.
Right. Okay. So I would bet if you looked at the total R&D for those two companies today, and then 3 years from now or 2 years from now, you go back and check, it's going to be less. It'll be split into 3 different companies, and the aggregate will be less than it is today. I can almost guarantee that.
So do you think that the Wall Street Journal called this the end of American ambition. Is this overstating things, or do you think there's something to this, Steve?
There's something to the fact that, listen, Coleman was built on, her whole idea was that DuPont was going to be a company that makes life better for the world, right? And they were going to use all these different things, the agricultural business and the plastics business and the safety materials business. These things were going to combine together to make a better world. And instead, when these companies are broken up, we may still have a better world, but it's going to be one company working on one thing and one company working on another thing. There's no global vision. There's no huge company that's going to have a global vision for how to make the future. And I think that we lose that when we break these companies.
We do have a lot of innovation happening out in Silicon Valley, of course.
Well,
yes.
That's what I was thinking with Steve was just saying, that we have those companies who want to make the world, quote unquote, a better place, and they're tech companies, right? Apple's not going to break itself up. Google's certainly wants to do everything. Facebook wants to be all things to all people. But it's a different type of innovation than what we've come to expect from the Dow Chemicals of the world.